This is a continuation of Luminous by Sokka's first fangirl on AO3. The author did include trigger warnings for this chapter, including panic attacks and discussions of death. This is Chapter 7, Journey to Hateno. Not far from Kakariko, Link noticed something odd. He swore he could hear wind chimes. He brought Errol to a halt, looking around for the source of the noise, but all he saw was an empty road. But then, he caught a glimpse of light floating above a nearby pond, and, for a moment, he was sure his eyes were playing tricks on him. The sun was reflecting oddly somehow. How could light be above the water? Then the light started moving, and all doubts fled. He was really seeing this. The light bounced around, almost like it was dancing. Cautiously, Link nudged Errol closer. He climbed off her back and approached slowly. The sound of wind chimes got louder. He thought he heard someone giggle. He reached out, touched the light, and... "Yah!" a childish voice cried. In a pop of light and leaves, a strange little creature appeared before Link's eyes. "You found me!" The odd creature was made entirely of wood with a leaf for a face. It looked like a mask. It held onto a big leaf that spun like a windmill, keeping it midair. Link let out a rather undignified yelp and stumbled back into Errol, one hand on the hilt of his sword. His horse seemed just as mystified as he did, nervously shifting in place and making a low, distressed noise. The thing stopped giggling. It didn't blink. Its carved-in smile didn't change, but it sounded bewildered when it said, "Hey, you're not Hestu!" Link didn't have the faintest idea who that was, but the thing didn't seem dangerous, just odd. He shook his head, and the little thing hummed, swaying back and forth. "But you can see me?" it asked. "I didn't think your kind could see children of the forest." Children of the forest? Well, it certainly would blend in with the forest. "I'm a Korok," the little thing continued cheerfully. "Hey, Hestu's around here somewhere. If you see him, give him this, okay?" With that, it threw a little golden thing at Link. He fumbled to catch it and looked at it with growing confusion. It was about the size of a pebble. It was bright gold, and it smelled odd. "Aw, man, I'm going to tell everyone you can see me," the Korok said. "Hey, do you like hide and seek? It's our favorite game." Link couldn't remember playing any games, of course. He wondered what his favorite used to be when he was a kid. The Korok was looking at him expectantly, waiting for Link's answer. The everlasting smile, while cute, was also a little disconcerting. Link nodded. He didn't quite have the heart to say no, and he didn't care to explain his amnesia to this strange little creature. "Yay!" The Korok waved its tiny legs, letting out tiny waves of sparkles. When it danced in the air, the sound of wood chimes began again. "I'll tell everyone and we can all play. If you see anything odd, just check it out. You could find my friends and then we can all be friends." It was like dealing with a particularly enthusiastic child. Bewildered as he was, Link smiled. The Korok giggled. Link put the little golden pebble in the Sheikah Slate's inventory, climbed back onto Errol, and headed off. It was certainly a weird way to start the day. Only around the corner, Link stumbled upon another creature. Unlike the tiny Korok, this one was huge. He looked like a fat tree. His leaf mask face didn't have any eyes or mouth, but he perked up when he saw Link and let out a delighted gasp. "Mr. Hero?" he cried. His voice was high-pitched, childish. "Shokka! Mr. Hero, is that you?" "You know me?" Link signed. He cleared his throat and tried to speak, but his voice was only a whisper. "You can..." And that was all he managed. Speaking around strangers just wasn't easy. "I know you!" the huge Korok practically shouted in delight. "Mr. Hero, you're back!" He bounced up and down, dancing in place. "Shakalaka! Mr. Hero, it's me, Hestu!" So this was Hestu. Link watched curiously. smiling in amusement as Hestu continued to prance around, loudly chanting, "Mr. Hero's back! Mr. Hero's back!" "You know sign?" Link asked. "Oh, yep. Grandpa told us Koroks to learn it, 'cause you use it." "Grandpa?" Link asked. He climbed off Errol, and Hestu rushed to his side, pulling him into a hug, enthusiastically swaying Link back and forth. He was too stunned to push Hestu off. They really must have known each other once, huh? Hestu was acting like they were old friends, but he seemed like a kid. Was he a child? "Shaka! Grandpa's gonna be so happy when I tell him you're back. We all really missed you. You gotta come visit sometime and—" "Oh no!" Hestu dropped him, drooping like a tired flower. "Shalaka! I can't go home without my maracas." What happened? Link was reeling with the sudden mood change. "The monsters got them," Hestu said sadly. He waved his empty hands as if to emphasize the lack of maracas. "If I had 'em, I could use my magic to help you. I bet you don't have the magic bag anymore." "Magic what?" Link's eyebrows rose as Hestu spoke. He used to have a magic bag? And Hestu could use maracas to make him another? Well, who was Link to judge? It was a far cry from Kotera's magic, that was for sure. "Which monsters?" he asked. Hestu pointed down the road, towards Kakariko Bridge. "They ran under the bridge," he said, "and I can't get 'em back." He didn't have facial features, but his whole energy screamed, pouting. "Leave it to me," Link signed. Hestu squealed again, clapping his hands, such as they were more like tree roots, and bounced again. "Shakalaka, you're so cool, Mr. Hero!" Link absolutely did not blush. "Thank you very much." He headed for the bridge. Hestu lingered back, gently crooning to Errol about how pretty she was. When Link looked over his shoulder, Hestu was braiding daisies into Errol's mane. Koroks were odd, very odd, but they seemed pretty cute so far, too. As Link approached the bridge, he could hear the telltale grunts and squeals of monsters. Sure enough, he could see them under the bridge, on a small embankment, 4 blue bokoblins. One of them had a pair of bright red maracas next to him. For a moment, Link wondered what the monsters even wanted with the maracas. Did they think they were food? Could monsters use the magic inside them? Maybe. Somehow. They knew the maracas were important and just wanted to hurt Hestu by taking them away. Whatever the case, they wouldn't get to keep them. Link pulled out his sword and with a quick use of the Cryonis rune, got across the water, under the bridge, and landed right in between the monsters. For a second, even the monsters looked almost humanly stunned. One grunted, jerking back in surprise. Link almost wanted to laugh. It didn't take long to take them out. They barely even had time to grab their clubs. Link gathered the parts left behind, a small handful of horns and fangs, grabbed the maracas, and hurried back to Hestu. When Link ran back up the hill, he found Hestu gently singing to Errol. "Shaka! Mr. Hero! You got my maracas!" he cried, running to meet Link halfway. He eagerly took the maracas and gave them a swing, but there was no noise. Oh no! The Korok seeds are gone!" "The what?" Link signed. "The Korok seeds! They make my maracas work, if I had just one." Hestu's voice trailed away. He sniffed, and Link felt a stab of panic, praying Hestu wasn't about to start crying. But then Hestu sniffed again and again, and immediately let out a happy little laugh. Hey! I smell a Korok seed! Do you have one?" Well, he had that weird pebble the Korok gave him. Link got it out of the slate and held it out to Hestu questioningly. Hestu whooped in glee and snatched it up quickly. He tossed it into the air, along with his maracas. In a flash of white light, flower petals and leaves, they blended together. When the maracas landed in Hestu's hand, he started to dance, and this time the maracas worked. Music accompanied him, and the maracas began to glow. boom! Shakalaka boom, shakalaka boom, boom! Yaha! Hetsu sang. He threw his arms up and light burst out of the maracas, soaring toward Link's pouch. The light changed from white to red and faded away quickly. Looky, looky, Hestu said, bouncing up and down. Link opened his pouch. It all looked normal, but when he reached his hand in, he quickly pulled it out. His pouch was suddenly much deeper than before. He could fit his entire forearm in it. Ta-da! Hetsu sang. I made your bag bigger, and it won't even feel heavy. Promise! Link was too stunned to sign or speak. For a moment, all he could do was gape. Hestu didn't seem to mind. He just giggled and shook his maracas. Thank you, Link eventually signed. He was sure his expression was still frozen in shock. Magic bag indeed. No problemo, Mr. Hero. And hey, if you get more Korok seeds, bring them to me. He drew himself up to his full height and was clearly trying to sound wise and important as he said, I'm a real grown-up now, you know. My magic's way stronger, so I bet I can help more. That wasn't an offer Link would refuse. He smiled and nodded. Hestu couldn't smile, but more sparkles appeared around him. Shaka, I'd better gather the others and head home, he said. I've been gone ages. Grandpa will be worried. But, remember to visit Korok Forest, okay? Bye-bye, Mr. Hero. With that, Hestu turned and skipped up the hill towards the spot where Link met the other Korok. Hestu hummed and sang the entire time. Little patches of flowers grew in his wake. Everything felt too still and silent when he was gone. The flowers on the ground vanished. Link turned to Errol. The daisies were still in her hair. He's right, Link told her. You're a very pretty horse. He swore that Errol preened. Dueling Peak Stable was busier than it was when Link first passed through. Beetle was still there, and he gave Link a cheery wave, along with a pair of identical twins who were muttering together in a corner. A man sitting by the cooking pot outside was looking over charts of the lunar cycle and mumbling to himself. He looked stressed. A trio of travelers were buying from Beetle, and another was getting instructions from the owner. Another pair of travelers were sitting by the bundles of hay and eating breakfast. When the travelers bought what they needed and Errol was boarded, Link wandered over to Beetle. Hey, you're back, Beetle said happily. Need to stock up. Link got 10 more arrows. Beetle said it was masterful shopping. In return, Link sold him some of the blue nightshade he'd gotten in Kakariko Village, and when Link had cooked himself some breakfast, he brought a portion over to Beetle. Marry me, Beetle said, tucking into the scrambled eggs and bacon. I'm already married, Link said, not thinking twice. Well, it was sort of true, right? It was so strange to think of himself as married. It was 10 times stranger in the worst way to think of himself as a widower. So Link just wouldn't think of himself that way. Beetle let out a theatrical sigh, throwing his head back. Curse you, Hylia, Beetle said, waving a fist at the sky. Link snickered and Beetle grinned at him. So, where are you heading? Hateno. Link pulled out the Sheikah slate and peered at the map. The little yellow dot flashed at him, but that portion of the map was otherwise blank. He'd need to find a Sheikah tower on the way. Ooh, that's fancy, Beetle said, peering at it closely. Sheikah, right? It's got their eye thingy on it. Link nodded. The dot didn't look too far. If you're on foot, it'll take a few hours, Beetle said. You know, I met a Sheikah scientist once. He was a weird guy, but he knew how to blow up those guardians. He shuddered, a look of terror flashing across his face. So yeah, totally worth talking to. Sheikah scientist. Way out in Akala. Funny guy, crazy hair, super smart though. No offense to Beetle, but Link didn't think he was in a position to throw stones about anyone's hair or mannerism. If you're heading to Hateno, be careful, Beetle said. Most of those guardians out there are dead, but Tassarin told me one of them's still up and running. Don't know which one though, so don't wander too far, okay? Beetle wouldn't drop it until Link pinky promised to be careful. and to teach him the scrambled eggs recipe. Not long after, it was time for Beetle to head off in search of another stable. Link lingered a while, going over his plans, get to Hateno, find Purah, ask her for help with the slate. Easy peasy. Then go to Zor's domain, meet with his in-laws, and try to tame divine beast Varuta, the same divine beast that killed Link's wife. Mipha, the princess. Mipha, the wife he couldn't remember. Not so easy. He felt the strangest mix of excited and terrified at the prospect of meeting King Dorephan. Sure, Impa said Dorephan loved Link. Dorephan had put guards around the plateau until he couldn't anymore, because he was worried about Link. He didn't want Link to be alone. It didn't change the fact that Link didn't remember him. Link didn't want to disappoint him. Well, Link would disappoint Dorephan if he just sat here on his ass and moped. Link stood, fists clenched, and marched off for the sprawling field behind Dueling Peak's stable. He could see a few monsters scattered about, most of them around the edge of the field, all too far away to notice as he began to walk. The place was littered with dead guardians. As he drew close to one, Link's steps faltered, his stomach churned, and his hands began to shake. He didn't know what was wrong with him. A few hours on foot to Hateno, Link thought. Or he could turn around, take Errol, and get there sooner. The idea of letting Errol anywhere near these dead husks made him want to scream and cry. You took something from me, Link thought, staring at the guardians. He took one step, then another, kneeled down to pick up the odd screws, springs, shafts, and gears. The guardians themselves were battered and clearly old. They'd seen battle, not just usual wear and tear. Yet the scattered inside of the guardians looked brand new. He thought he could smell smoke and something worse, something darker, something he didn't have a name for. Link shoved the parts in his newly enchanted pouch and began to run. I'm fine, he told himself. It's fine. Whatever they did before, they're dead now. It's okay. 10 more paces and nothing happened. Halfway across the field, nothing changed. Link began to slow down. None of the guardians stirred. Impa said these things were damn near impossible to kill, but this field was a guardian graveyard. What could have killed so many of them? What battle took place here? Link looked across the field to the crumbling stone wall and gate. It looked like the remains of a fort or some kind of stronghold. More dead guardians leaned against the wall, wooden stakes stuck out of the ground, a meager defense. The sun was shining, birds chirped. The tiny handful of monsters in the field were too far away for Link to hear them. It was a lovely morning, but Link looked at the old wall and felt nothing but sheer dread. But it was his only way to Hateno village, so he forced himself to keep walking. How many people fought here, Link wondered. It must have been a lot to fight so many guardians. But how had they fought them? Sheikah weapons, perhaps? But the guardians were Sheikah tech too, so maybe not. He wanted to vomit, but he kept going. He occasionally paused to gather more of the oddly pristine ancient parts around the guardians. His hands and legs shook, his breathing was too shallow, but Link kept going. He reached the wall, so of course, that's when everything went wrong. It was stupid. He was so fucking stupid. He wandered the length of the wall, gathering more parts. He found an apple tree. He didn't notice the guardian behind him stir, not until it began to beep. That one little noise sent him into free fall. Blind panic drove him. Link fell from the apple tree, landing in a heap on the ground. The guardian beeped louder. Its light flashed red, and its big, glowing eyes zeroed in on him. Link couldn't breathe. Fire. There was so much fire, and... Kid, run! The malice on the ground everywhere, whole pools of it. Epona was dead. Everyone was dead. They were... Hands grabbed him. A frantic voice shouted, "Come on!" and hauled him to his feet. A red laser was trained on Link's chest, on his heart, flickering between him and the man who grabbed him. Zelda. Where was Zelda? They had to... Mipha. Oh, Hylia Mifa. He needed his parents, his sister, the champions, Castletown. They needed to go. They had to run. They needed to. Malice, fire, smoke, sulfur, monsters, guardians, earthquakes, floods, hurricanes, tornadoes. The world was ending. Their friends were dead. Mifa was dead. It was just him and Zelda. Zelda screaming, Zelda panicking, her hands covering over Link's torn and burned side. Zelda covered in mud, drenched from the relentless rain. Zelda was here. He had to, he needed to, Link, he had to save her. The laser exploded. The man pushed Link down behind a dead guardian, and Link couldn't breathe. He gasped and sobbed, burning from the inside out. Zelda, where was she? He lost her. How could he? He let her down. He needed to go. Everyone was dead, but she wasn't. Link was, but he wasn't. He needed to find Zelda. He had to. Kid, it's okay. It's okay. Deep breaths. Come on. It can't get us here. Look, we're in the fort. It's okay. I promise you're okay. It can't see us. Link opened his eyes. Zelda wasn't here. There was no fire. He wasn't hurt. The world had ended. Then it kept going anyway. We were here, Link realized with horror. We were, weren't we? The Guardians. He looked at the open gate and gagged. The man patted Link on the back with a sympathetic smile. First time seeing a live Guardian, eh? He guessed, so incredibly wrong but weirdly correct. They're scary bastards. Link only managed a distressed noise in response. The man gently pushed his flask into Link's hand, and he choked down a few mouthfuls of water, shivering. What idiot set off a guardian? Someone shouted. Another man peered out of his little cabin only a few paces away. I'm trying to research. Oh, knock it off, Calip. Link's rescuer snapped. He's just a kid. The other man, Calip, looked at Link, and all frustration drained from his face. He sighed heavily, running a hand over his balding head. Oh, he said, painfully awkward. Well, that's, just keep it down, yes? He quickly went back inside. Even from where he was sitting, Link had seen the embarrassed blush on his face. That's Calip, the man sighed. He's obnoxious, but I promise he's normally kinder than that. He nudged Link and offered a more genuine smile. I'm Goril. What's your name, kid? Link signed his name, his voice long gone, but Goril didn't speak sign. Link grabbed a stick and wrote his name in the dirt. In honor of the Hylian champion, Goril asked. It's a strong name. Nothing about Link felt strong right now. He was sure he'd fall over if he tried to stand up. Goril, the utter saint, kept up a steady stream of chatter. He explained he frequently came here to Fort Hateno to honor the fallen. He said this was a good spot for apple picking and for catching fireflies. Apparently, Calip was studying a hidden shrine nearby, but Calip couldn't figure out where it was exactly or how to access it. Goril said he wanted to be a warrior when he was young. He said he and his sister used to play at Princess and Champion, pretending to be Zelda and Link fighting the calamity. He didn't expect Link to talk, just tried to keep him distracted, and Link was absurdly grateful for it. While Goril chatted, Link tried to pull himself together. He'd been here during the calamity. He'd been here with Zelda. They'd been running. They were the only ones left. How long had it taken them to realize their friends were gone? Link didn't remember. He just knew he'd been here and things had gone horribly wrong. Goril mindlessly dropped a bomb when he next spoke. Towards the center of the field is a tribute to the Hylian champion, he said. Surviving soldiers placed their swords in the ground to honor him. The residents of Hateno continued the tradition. It spread, and now any traveling fighters, treasure hunters, or even just merchants and pilgrims join in. Link kept very still. The burning sensation fled, and instead felt ice cold. Carefully, with stilted movements, he wrote in the dirt, "He fell here?" "He did," Geralt said sadly. "Died defending Hateno and the princess. But there's an old fairy tale. Some say he didn't die at all. They say he was whisked away, placed in an enchanted sleep by the goddesses, waiting to rise again and finish what he started. Goril shrugged with a wry smile. Personally, I prefer that version. I'd love to meet him. My great-grandfather met him when he was just a kid, only 5 or 6 years old, when the champions came riding through his hometown on their way to the castle. He always talked about it. He was so proud to have met him. He'd always brag about how the Hylian champion let him see his holy blade. I died here. Link stopped listening. He leaned back against the tree, limbs akimbo like a broken doll, and stared ahead at nothing. He tried to think of nothing. Purah used to pester Robbie by proclaiming that she was Link's favorite. She didn't hear him speak for nearly a year. Her sign abilities were abysmal when they met, but Link's eyes lightened at her terrible efforts when she tried to sign along as she spoke. He didn't smile, but he didn't scowl at her. Purah remembered looking up from an experiment. No, this one did not explode, Impa, and smiled as she watched Zelda babble a mile a minute at Link. She gestured rapidly with her whole arms, brimming with excited energy about a guardian breakthrough. Link sat on the table. He didn't stand at attention anymore with stiff shoulders and an impassive face. Now he sat on the table like any other teenager and scooted closer at Zelda's urging. He didn't speak, but he didn't frown or show any distaste when Purah called him Linky. He glared when one of her students was stupid enough to try and call him Linky too. That student hadn't lasted long. He let Purah test the bomb rune with him by throwing bombs at him. So yeah, she was totally his favorite. When he gave her a sign name, he included her favorite pose, the rock-on sign over her eye. To anyone else, her sign name probably looked like nonsense. Explode rock-on would be the literal translation, but it was Purah. It was her. She was the first of the Sheikah to get a sign name, even before Impa. The Sheikah towers rose, and Purah screamed so loudly that Simon spilled hot coffee all over himself and her precious notes. The towers rose, and they could only be activated with the Sheikah slate, the slate she left with Link. Linky was awake. Oh, Impa had better tell him to visit, Purah thought, and she scrambled to save her notes from the spilled coffee, or I'll be throwing bombs at her this time. The towers were back. Linky was back. Now Purah just had to wait some more, and she'd never been very good at waiting. Her relentless whining, pacing, and fretting was driving Simon insane as the days passed. Perhaps we should write to Lady Impa, he finally suggested, and ask her if he's arrived at Kakariko. But what if he hadn't? What if he didn't remember a damn thing like Purah feared? What if he wandered off into the wilderness and was eaten by a bear? What if Ganon realized Hylia's Chosen was alive and set hordes of monsters after him? What if he just didn't believe them when they told him he was the chosen hero? Hylia's Chosen, Farore's child. With no memories and no Master Sword, he might think they were all crazy. What if he didn't want to be her friend anymore? Tears stung her eyes, and Purah blamed her stupid 6-year-old body for all of these heightened emotions. She kept getting overly excited or tearful over the smallest, stupidest things. She threw a full-on tantrum last week, and it was literally because of spilled milk. She didn't dare try to reverse this aging disaster, though. One false move and she could die overnight. She was stuck as a 6-year-old, pushing back against the calamity in a child's body. At least she looked cute. And hey, weren't some of the legendary heroes kids? Except Purah wasn't a legendary hero. She was a scientist, proudly eccentric. She was damn smart, and she knew it. And she wanted to see her friend again. Even if Linky didn't remember her, she wanted to see him, and she wanted to help. This time, oh, this time, they'd kick Calamity Ganon's ugly butt. Purah didn't dare open the door, not with those village kids trying to spy on the lab lately. Damn Simon's clumsiness with the blue flame. But she stared at the door, fists clenched in her lap. Simon had written to Impa in the end, and they were waiting for a response. The response had better be, yes, he's here and he's okay. Everything is going to be okay. Last time Purah had seen Link, he was dead in Robbie's arms. She'd placed him in the Shrine of Resurrection herself. Although she'd known it was necessary, it had taken all her strength to let go, to leave him there alone. She wasn't sure how Impa found the strength to face King Dorothan. Purah couldn't imagine seeing him, not even now. Surely he'd hate her. Impa was Zelda's aide, a royal advisor, but Purah was one of the top scientists researching the Guardians. She'd helped make sure they were perfect. That perfection killed thousands, maybe even millions of people. The Guardians had killed her friend. Purah wanted him back. She wanted to see him, to make sure he was truly in one piece. She wanted to see, with her own eyes, that everything was going to be okay. She'd fix this. She had to. Zelda was fighting every minute of every day. Purah would do the same. She owed it to everyone. But for now, all she could continue to do was wait. Wait and tell herself it would all be okay. Tell herself that she'd see her friend again soon. Link wasn't sure of the exact time, but he knew that hours passed before he hauled himself to his feet and left Goril by his little campfire. Clip left the cabin ages ago, threw Link and Goril a shamed-faced glance, and hurried down a narrow pathway. He loudly proclaimed, as if to an audience, that he had research to continue. As the sun began to set, he returned loudly, talking to himself about studying further. "Stay safe," Goril said, and Link waved weakly in farewell. He walked and tried not to think. He failed. His mind kept going back to Fort Hateno, to Blatchery Plain, those two cursed locations that Goril told him all about, totally unknowing that he was telling Link the tale of his own death. If he'd known, Link doubted he'd continue to talk. Fire, malice, smoke, lasers. Terrible, agonized screams, but the silence that followed was even worse. Zelda, wheezing for breath, stumbling as she tried to continue running. Link, a hole burnt in his side, coated in blood. He wanted to lie down and sleep for another 100 years. But it hadn't been sleeping, had it? Not really. He'd been dead. Link ran. He ran until his legs ached, until his chest burned, and then he kept running. Hateno village. He had to get there. Anything to make these thoughts stop. Despite his aching limbs, when Link found the Sheikah Tower, he didn't hesitate to climb it. He collapsed to his knees at the top and laid down on the cold floor. The sun was nearly completely gone. The breeze was colder up here. He activated the tower, unlocking the map. From here, he could see houses. Walls, an archway, lights coming on in windows. Hateno village. It was bigger than Kakariko. More fields, more houses, much more sprawling. Even in the hills, there were more fields and windmills. It looked picturesque, and Link felt like his whole body was made of poison. He'd died. He'd walked through the very field where he died, and he hadn't even known. He'd just known he didn't like the Guardians. Well, now he knew why. Fuck, he was so glad he hadn't been Errol. If that Guardian had gotten her... Link gagged again, despite his empty stomach. Was he sick with anxiety, or sick because he hadn't eaten since breakfast? Did it even matter? Did anything matter? Go to Hateno, meet Purah, fix the slate, go to Zora's domain, free the 4 divine beasts. Link had died. How could he free anyone? He'd failed 100 years ago. Why was everyone so happy to see him? Why weren't they furious? Would Purah be furious? Would she demand to know what took him so long? What if she didn't want to help? Only yesterday, Link had used the Triforce and he'd felt strong. It was like the stars aligned and he felt like he could do anything. Fire in his veins, stardust in his eyes, he'd felt brave. Now he felt like nothing, a ghost, a walking corpse. He wanted Mipha. How insane was that? He didn't remember her, but he wanted her there anyway. In the distance, at the very top of the hill, a light came on, shining in a window. Smoke rose from the chimney. It was an odd building. Even from the Sheikah Tower, Link could see it wasn't shaped like the other buildings in the village. He'd needed to find Purah. Link opened his paraglider and jumped from the tower. He'd tried to summon that feeling of purpose, that determination he'd felt before. To get answers, to meet Dorephan, to save Zelda, avenge Mipha. To remember. But maybe remembering wasn't all it cracked up to be. Link landed unsteadily, stumbling. The man guarding the entrance to the village gaped at him. "What the heck is that?" he demanded. Link didn't answer. He swept past, ignoring the man calling after him. Too tired to run, honestly too tired to keep walking, but he did anyway. He couldn't stop. It wasn't an option. Link was falling apart, but Hyrule had fallen apart a long time ago and kept going. If he stopped, he'd cry. If he stopped, he wouldn't start again. He wandered into the general store. The man behind the counter raised an eyebrow. "Traveler, huh? What can I do you for?" Link couldn't talk. He mimed writing in midair, but it took 4 tries before the shopkeeper understood and handed Link a pencil and sheet of paper. "Looking for lab," Link wrote. The shopkeeper's eyebrows rose higher. "At the very top of the hill," he said. "Past the farm. But I gotta give you a heads up, kid. Those Sheikah are weird." That was the least of Link's worries. "Thanks," he wrote. He turned to go, but the shopkeeper called him back and pressed more sheets of paper and the pencil back into Link's hands. "Just in case you need it," he said. "One more thing. Some local kids insist a little girl lives up there. If they see you going in, they'll pester you. Try to ignore them, yeah? They get a little too invested in playing pretend sometimes." Link had the nonsensical thought that he should introduce the kids to some Koroks. He'd be willing to bet a lot of rupees they'd get along. He gave the shopkeeper a thumbs up and walked away. As soon as he was outside, he hurried towards the back of the village, his gaze locked on the distant form of the lab. Sure enough, he saw 2 little boys staring intently at the lab, peering out from behind the trees. One sneezed and the other nudged him and whisper shouted, "Shh! They'll hear you!" "All the way from here?" the sneezing kid grouched. Link kept going. He felt lightheaded. His feet were killing him. Bad turn of phrase. He didn't bother knocking when he reached the lab. He just walked in. If Purah wasn't angry at him before, she certainly would be now. Inside, the big room was stuffy and lit with oil lamps. A middle-aged Sheikah man was organizing an overstuffed bookshelf, and a little girl sat on a high stool, balancing a pencil on her nose. Huh. Maybe Purah had a granddaughter? He didn't see an old woman anywhere. Was Purah not here? Or maybe upstairs, or... "Hello," the little girl said. "You here to see the director?" Link nodded. The little girl smiled serenely and pointed towards the man at the bookshelf. "Just over there," she said. "Better make it quick. He's super-duper busy." Was Purah not the director anymore? She was meant to be here. Impa said she'd be here. Okay, so maybe she just wasn't in charge anymore? If she was Impa's sister, she'd be over 100 years old. Surely she'd earned her retirement. Link approached the man, and the little girl went back to balancing her pencil on her nose. How can I... The man looked away from the books, and his eyes widened. His gaze dropped to the Sheikah slate. Oh, you're... Pardon me, are you Link? Link nodded. The man grinned at him. I'm Simon, he said. It's an honor to meet you, Your Highness. He turned towards the little girl, hands on his hips. Dr. Purra, please pay attention. Prince Link is here. Wait, what? Purra? But she's... The little girl suddenly burst out laughing and threw her pencil down on her crowded, messy desk. She jumped off her stool and cried, Check it! Doing a rock-on sign over her eyes. Did I fool you, Linky? Purra? Link asked, and he signed, Explode rock-on, without even thinking about it, without even realizing what he'd signed at all. Purra's grin widened. Her eyes watered, and she lowered her hands to her sides. It's me, she confirmed with a shaky giggle. Long time no see, Linky. Thanks so much to anybody who listens to this. As always, I'll leave a link down in the description for the original fic on AO3. Please go leave kudos and comments for the original author there.